Hey everybody, welcome to episode 1 of Scotty Drinks Tea. I'm Scotty, I'm going to be drinking tea. Again, this is just some tasting notes and some chatting about tea, mostly ShengCha, maybe some oolongs, maybe some shu, who knows. But today I am going to be drinking a 2004 Yangpinhao Yibang from White2Tea. I picked up this tea a couple years ago. I don't think that it is currently available, at least at White2Tea. It's a pretty interesting tea. I haven't actually had it in a while. Go ahead and take a look at the leaves, maybe. Focus. Well, anyway, they're pretty dark. They look okay. There are some decent pieces. Right, that's not so bad. Some pretty good sized pieces. The cake itself, if you want to look at it, I've drunk up a fair bit of it. But this is what it looks like, just kind of a plain. I don't know a ton about Yangpinhao, although I know that every tea that I've had that is older than 2006, I've liked quite a bit. I've had some a little bit younger teas that were not so good. Still okay, just not anything fantastic. And if you want to look at the tea cake itself, the nife and all that kind of stuff. I'll see if I can do this without dropping tea dust everywhere. This is what it looks like. So pretty wet stored tea, which I like. I'd rather have things on the wetter side than on the drier side. And this one's been pretty wet stored. And it's what I remember is it's pretty good. One of the things I want to do with this channel is I don't want to pre-drink any teas before I come on here and talk about them. I want the tasting notes to be fresh, even though I might do teas that I've never had before, new tea cakes, and try those out on camera. But it might just be teas that I haven't had in a while. So, all that being said, I don't quite remember exactly what this tea is like, but we are going to give it a shot. Boiling with, or using water just off the boil. I have a little thing that keeps the water at around 205 to boiling, depending. I'm using Gaiwan. If you care about this, I'm using 6 grams of leaves, around 6 grams of leaves to this is about 100 milliliter Gaiwan. So that I just have this warming up. We'll go ahead and get that in the chahe. Okay, we'll go ahead and put these leaves in here. Okay. Go ahead and let those steam a little bit. I do think it's kind of nice. I do like to let my leaves steam in a warm Gaiwan for just 30 seconds or so. Nothing too crazy. And I think it just helps release. I don't think it does the tea itself tastes any better. But I think it helps to start release some of the storage notes. And I think it's just another point of information when you're tasting a tea to smell the warm leaves from the Gaiwan. So I'm going to go ahead and smell it. Beets. I remember this tea now. Yeah, this tea is beets. Fresh beets, maybe steamed lightly or maybe boiled, not roasted. But it's dirty, it's sweet, it's vegetal. And I'm just talking the aroma right now. This is from that steamed leaves. There's a touch of cereal sweetness in there, maybe a little bit of cereal grain. But mostly it's just beets. And that's kind of cool. You don't get that very often in tea. Sometimes in wet stored tea you can, but not very often. Okay, so we'll go ahead and give it a little rinse here. Just a quick rinse to see where we're going to go. Okay, already nice and dark on the rinse. Okay, you can see that. Okay. Yeah, for a rinse, that's going to be good. This tea has definitely seen some wet storage. It's nice. I've had it for, I don't even know, probably since 2015, maybe 2014. I don't remember exactly when it went up on the website. I got it kind of right when it went up. It's been sitting in my storage since then. I have a climate-controlled storage that I built that keeps things right around 75 degrees and around 70 to 75 relative humidity in there. So it's had a chance to dry out a little bit. That's not too bad. Let's go ahead and smell it here. Okay, yeah, so I'm getting on the aroma more beets, more earth, more rich earth, a little bit of mulch. Not shoe poor mulch, not anywhere going near that territory, but a little bit of a woody mulch, like mulch on a warm day. Okay, a little bit of brown sugar in there, a little bit of unrefined like palm sugar, that kind of thing, just in the aroma. Okay, we will go ahead and give this a first steep. Okay. I know some people would rinse this twice, but I don't think it's necessary. I want to get as much of this tea as I can. I don't remember how much I paid for this tea. It was moderately expensive, I would say, probably. Just giving the age and the relative quality of the tea. It's a pretty good one. All right, let's take a look at the soup. See if I can't fog up the lens here. One thing that I like about this soup, and I don't think you're able to tell this on camera, but you get a nice halo effect in a wide flat mug, or a mug, right? A wide flat teacup. You get a nice dense red-brown in the middle, but around the edges, it's still yellow. So this tea hasn't been totally wet stored. It hasn't been mulched or composted all the way. It still has some life in it, I think. But we'll taste it and find out. So yeah, it's sweet. It's really sweet, and it's roundly sweet. Surprisingly, I guess not surprisingly. It's just what the tea is. Really, really round sweetness. Not an immediate huigan, okay? In fact, I'm not really getting a whole lot right now at the second, but a nice penetrating sweetness in the mouth. The tea has almost no bitterness whatsoever in the cup, at least in this initial steeping. But the idea of beets carries over because it's so sweet, and beets are a sweet thing, right? They're kind of like weird sweet dirt when you eat them. This doesn't have a tanginess like a beet, but it carries with it that sugar, that earthy, sugary sweetness. I mean, really like good, rich soil condensed down into a fruit and then pulled out. Oh, I guess it's a root, but you know what I mean. Yeah. It's got that. There's a little bit of old book in this, although not tons of old book. And you know what I mean by old book. Like you walk into an old library or an old collection of books, or even a box of books that have stored, and there's that kind of sweet, spicy vanilla note, as actually the cellulose in the paper, I think, breaks down into vanillin, so you really get true vanillin, but also a little bit of spice. There's a bit of that. Not anywhere going near true vanilla. But the earthiness and the sweetness and the bookishness just gives a sense of time in this. And that's kind of a weird thing to say when you take, what does time taste like? It doesn't taste old. It tastes like something that is very stable. Something that has been there for a long time. Like imagine, okay, walking through the woods, you come across a stump, okay? And that stump or of a tree, maybe you can see the roots that have exposed a little bit, and there's a rock that has been, the roots have grown around that rock. Have you ever seen that? There's one on the property here where there's this tree that grew around this huge boulder, and then in a winter storm, the tree fell over and it ripped that boulder up, and now it's holding the boulder way up in the air. But when you go up and you get near that, you smell the mineralness of the rock and the earth. You smell the woodiness from the tree and the roots, and then you get that rich soil that comes about from the tree being there for so long and pulling nutrients out of the ground, but also putting them right back in there. And that rock, and it's just that sense of time that this taken, how long it has taken for those roots to grow around that rock, that boulder, and then to pull it up, and then a little bit of the sadness that the fact that like, well, that won't continue because the rock is now pulled up, the tree is gone. Maybe somewhat in this tea, you know. This is 6 grams that I won't get again. No cake will be exactly the same anymore, but this tea, we're gonna try not to be too sappy, huh? Okay. So pretty good. Let's smell the guy one again. Yeah, carrots as well. I want to saying this though, that I'm saying a lot of like beets and carrots and mulch and things like that. This is not vegetal at all. Beets are a weird thing, and I guess we could talk about what vegetal means, right? Because vegetal mean different things to different people. When I say vegetal, I mean green things, or I think about green things like grass or spinach or kale or carrot greens or beet greens. Things that are growing in leafy celery, maybe as well. Rhubarb, also you can pick up sometimes in tea. And that's what I mean when I say vegetal. That's, for me, anyway. That's my palate. I mean vegetal. Now, this definitely, I mean, it really tastes like beets, okay? But I don't see beets as being a vegetal thing. I see beets as being an earth thing, even though I guess technically a beet is a vegetable. It's a root. It's a tuber. But let's not get into the complexity of that, huh? Maybe we can. Let me know in the comments. Do you want me to talk about tubers? I'm game. I'm drinking tea, right? It's all good. See, much darker soup now. Okay, really going on brown mahogany. That's nice. In the cup. Okay. Okay, so that initial rush of mulch and beet and earthiness is starting to fade away, and what's coming up is more of a deeper leather. You're still getting some old book, but that old book is tending more towards old wood. And think of like old spicy wood, that's not a bad description. Think about an old bookshelf, right? Okay, so you walk into a library, there's or you walk into an old house, a big old mansion, and people have lived there for a long time, but they're selling it. And you walk into the room that was the library, all the books are gone, but these old oak shelves are still sitting there, and you go up and you put your nose around them and smell them, right? And you get a little bit of dust, and you get like a weird like bug that might be around the corner, but then you get the ghost of those warm vanilla-y pages with that nice wood that sits right there. And I'm getting quite a bit of that. There's a touch of bitterness picking up. This tea has not totally finished aging. Okay, it's not strong. One thing that I'm not getting from this, which is not surprising considering the amount of humidity that I think it has had in aging, is I'm not getting a big quigan from this. This tea does not carry a long, lingering, returning taste. That those aromas and sensations that arise up from your throat and into your mouth. I'm left with quite a nice sweetness in the mouth, okay, but I don't think that's the same thing as a huigan. Not an expert on this. I don't speak Mandarin. I don't speak Cantonese. I barely speak English. But from my understanding, a huigan is more about flavors and sensations that return kind of from the back of your throat up into your mouth. And a mouthfeel or a mouth sensation or an aftertaste is what the tea leaves directly into your mouth. And I'm getting a nice sweetness that I'm getting some nice, again, carrot beet woodiness from this in the mouth, and really a natural sweetness, not a sugary sweetness, but a natural fruit sweetness, not tart, not fruit as an acidity or flavor, but just that kind of sweetness that you would get from like an Asian pear, kind of sweetness from that. Oh man, I better speed this up, right? We're gonna be here all day. You can fast forward, it's fine. Stable. If I stretched, I could say I'm getting a little bit of cocoa in here, but I'm not. But it's that, again, it's that old wood. It's that deep bass that kind of moves below your normal palette of food flavors that's coming into tea, and coming into this sheng. And that's one of the things that I love so much about tea, is you are tasting flavors that you normally don't get to taste, and that you can't taste. Like, don't chew on an old book. It doesn't taste anything like it smells. It just doesn't. It's just the way that coffee doesn't taste like it smells, right? If coffee tasted like it smelled, we'd be drinking more coffee instead of tea, huh? There is almost a rubbery taste in this. Think about like like an inflatable pool, and how the water tastes after it's been in there for a little bit. It's not bad, and I think that might be just another flavor that is not fully resolved yet as the cup cools. Obviously, you'll notice that when you're drinking tea, the flavors change as the tea cools down, and so sometimes flavors that are emerging from the steep, or that were something else when the tea was very hot, can kind of change or even emerge as the tea cools down. But if they're not complete yet, then maybe they're gonna taste a little bit weird, like a little bit of rubber there. It was just a little hint of it right there at that last cup. So let's see. I'm gonna pour high here. Fancy. See the bubbles. And just cool down a little bit. Really nice, dark soup. Okay, so the sweetness has left the beet range. It has just moved into more of a general wet stored sheng sweetness, which is like a little bit like burnt sugar, not caramel, but just a little bit burnt sugar. Really, this tea is not complex. It has been too wetly stored to be complex. I love wet stored sheng pu'er. I really, really do. But if you are wanting complexity in your older teas, don't store them so wet, or don't buy wet stored pu'er. I don't know that it's possible to really wet store pu'er in the West unless you live in like Louisiana or Florida or the Keys, or I maybe, but in Central Washington, no, you're not wet storing. You're just doing anything to just keep dry storage so they don't turn to dust. So it's funny. I'm still getting a little bit of that rubber, and it's just a touch, and it's layered into the kind of the woody leatheriness that I'm picking up. It's just a little bit undertone, like an old chunk of leather sitting on top of a plastic pool. It's not unpleasant, surprisingly. I don't want it to be there necessarily. I'd rather it wasn't there, but it's not bad. It's just kind of weird. Yeah. With the leather in this, that beet flavor and aroma has just moved into a really, really nice old dark leather. I'm gonna smell the leaves again. Yeah, at least it'll smell like beets. Okay, now we could say, or I could say, because you're not actually here with me, I wish you were, that the beet and the earth was the storage aroma in here. And maybe it is, but I don't think so. Because now, outside of those beets that I'm picking up in the gaiwan, okay, you can see those leaves. I figured out a way to light this better. We just get a light. I don't know. But I am picking up a little bit of damp basement, dirt floor, damp basement. I love the smell of weird old Chinese basements. And I feel comfortable saying that in front of you, that I like that kind of thing. But it's a very specific smell. There was a basement growing up in an aunt's house that a great aunt that lived on a lake, and their basement, they would send me down there as a kid to get canned goods down there. And it had that kind of smell. Not quite the same, but similar. It's a very nostalgic smell. I think it's maybe one of the reasons that I like wet stored pu'er so much. But yeah, in the cup, not getting any of that basement. Maybe a touch of beet if I'm looking for a touch of earth, a touch of malt, but really leather, old, strong leather. The tea is becoming more bitter, not in an abrasive way, not in it needs to be aged longer way. I don't think this tea needs to be aged any longer, considering the wetness that it's been aged in. If this was aged a little bit drier, yeah, sure, this tea's just getting going, right? It's only, 15 years old, 16 years old, something like that. But as much humidity as it's gotten, I don't think it needs to go very farther. But what I like about it is that it still carries a little bit of impact. There's still some presence in the cup, which is really nice. That this tea hasn't just been humidified away to nothing. Another tea that White2Tea used to sell, that White2Tea used to sell, was the 90s Hong Kong stored pu'er, just a generic fine white label kind of thing. You know, that's a tea that people raved about, and I liked it, but it was so Hong Kong stored that there wasn't anything left of the tea. It was all storage flavor, and there was no presence in the cup. It was just kind of shooed, like well, it wasn't really made into choux pu'er, but it was on its way to doing that. And not that the choux pu'er is bad, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. And so, but it was a great example of too wet stored, because until that time I was always looking for more wet stored teas. I live in a very dry climate, and I crave that humidity, I think, and that was a little bit too far. This tea is not too far, but I think another 5-6 years in that really, really hot, wet condition, it would be. I think you would lose the presence of in the cup, the impact that it has. It's not a bruiser by any means, it's not bitter in the way that a Yangpinhao is bitter. It just has some presence and impact. It has some weight in the mouth. Yeah. And let's talk about its origins. Yibang, maybe. Again, I barely speak English here. I tend to think of Yibang teas as having a little bit less floral nature and less perfumey floral nature, more actual flower. In aroma and in taste, decent bitterness, sharp bitterness towards the front of your mouth, unlike a belang, which is kind of towards the back. And that's kind of my take on it. I'm not super good at picking out regions of growing regions in Yunnan, but I do a little bit. Okay, so pretty stable. Leather, warmth, the heavy presence in the mouth. Yeah. It's a great winter tea. It's very warming. It's kind of making me sweat. It doesn't have a huge caffeine level, I don't believe. Or at least probably not anymore. Maybe it did at one point, but definitely the energy. It's warming. And it's not sedating, really. It's kind of neutral in that effect. I'm not getting stoned from the tea by any means, but it's pretty nice and warming and good wintertime tea. As far as Huigan now, as the tea is really opened up and is getting going, I'm getting a little bit of that. I'm getting a little bit of tartness in the Huigan emerging from the back of my throat. Again, I want to keep coming back to like an Asian pear or a Korean pear, you know, the big round fruits that come in like the weird styrofoam net. At least they do in some places. That's what I keep coming back to, but it's not right. It doesn't taste like that, but my brain keeps going back to that Asian pear. And so I think there must be something there. Maybe it's the skin. Ooh. Yeah, you know what? It's the skin of the Asian pear. Kind of like unwashed. Like if you were to lick a pear, an Asian pear, that kind of aftertaste in your mouth, a little bit dry, a little bit bitter, but still carrying the momentum of the fruit. That's the Huigan that I'm getting from this. Oh, that's really interesting. I like that. Boy. Asian pear skin, huh? Yeah, maybe I'm smelling that in the cup. I'm getting more of spice notes in here, and that could be, you know how old leather can be kind of spicy, right? There might be some of that. But there's almost a little bit of like sandalwood in this, which is kind of nice. In the aroma of the gaiwan, not in the soup itself. Oh, sorry, I forgot you. some more floralness. It's not floral. I keep wanting to say floral because there's a fruitiness there that doesn't have the body of a fruit. The Asian pear. Yeah, I'm really stuck on that. Maybe I messed up in saying that. Maybe my mind's stuck on it and I can't get past it. That happens sometimes when you're tasting tea or food or anything, is you get stuck on something and you can't get past that in your brain. It's a mental thing. And it's why reading reviews right before you drink a tea or eat at a restaurant can be detrimental to actually analyzing and tasting it. Look at the way restaurants describe their food and how if specials a lot of times will be very conspicuously, you're going to read that right away and you're going to keep that in your memory. And if you order that, you're going to remember that and you're going to start tasting some of the things that they're talking about. And the way you describe a tea in your brain really, really affects the way you're tasting a tea or anything, food, drink, whatever. So it's good to go into a tasting with a clear mind, but I think I got myself hooked on the Asian pear because now I'm getting it all over the place. But it's interesting though. I'd have to go out and get one, and to totally remember exactly what they taste like. But they are more flowery than like a Basque pear or an Anjou pear. I think, well, from memory, is that they're a little bit harder. I think, and they're not quite as sweet. And people call them a pear apple, right? Because they're an apple pear, because they have more of the texture of an apple, but the taste of a pear. But I think they also carry through more of a flowery aroma in that, from what I'm remembering. I'm getting some of that here. Yeah. There's some, I want to say cheesiness. That's not the right word. Boy, that sounds terrible. Pears and cheese. Actually, that's really good. It's like a pear and a brie, but that's not what's necessarily in this tea. But there's a tartness that's starting to develop that is not in the fruit range now. That sits more along the lines of like a dairy or like a. I'm thinking of like a powdered cheese, like you get in like a box of mac and cheese, right? If you were to just take the mouthfeel of that and not the actual flavor, you might be getting some of this. I'm really selling this tea, aren't I? Oh my god, powdered cheese and Asian pears and beets and dirt, right? And a couple old books. But it really is good. I think I might be looking for more things that are here. I think this is pretty simple. I think this tea is a great example of a tea that has been wet stored just long enough. Any farther, I think this tea would have been malted into oblivion. You wouldn't get anything but the humidity from it. It still retains some of its original character. I think that pear skin note, I think those old books and that warm wood and that sense of time is well, they're not necessarily the sense of time, but the rest are characteristic of the tea itself before it's been aged. That time and the other humidity factors in this, maybe some of that plastic, is a storage thing. So one thing when you're looking to buy tea, maybe an advice that I would give is really do take a look if they do on the website that you're buying it from, if you're buying it online, if they do have a picture of the soup, take a look. Look at this color, and I think, looking at my camera, I think that's pretty true to the color of what it is. It's just kind of a mahogany brown color with a little bit of red in it. That's pretty good. That's pretty good for a wet stored tea. Any more than that, any more towards the shoe range, and you might be going a little bit too much humidity, you might be a little bit disappointed. I will eventually get around to tasting that Hong Kong stored, or Hong Kong style, 90s Hong Kong style tea from White2Tea. But as it is, this 2004 Yangpinhao Yibang ShengCha is pretty good. I like it. I will drink it. I will continue to drink it. It's excellent for the winter. It's excellent if you like deep earthy flavors. And I would encourage you to look up more Yangpinhao productions, because they can be really nice. Older ones can be anyway, and they seem to take storage and humidity well. Okay, so if you like this, I guess give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Leave a comment. Email me at scottydrinkstea@gmail.com. Again, that's SCOTTIE. I'm one of those weird IE guys. And what do you think about the review? Anything you want me to take a look at? Yeah. All right. Have a good. Jesus, I can't even finish the video. Have a good evening, everybody.